Hello and welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to be tier ranking the supporting Kamen Riders. This pretty much includes any rider that I haven't covered in my previous videos, but I won't be including every single remaining rider. I won't be including any character who is only a rider for a very short time, like Tsukiyomi from Geo, or riders who only appear in a very few amount of episodes like Shuki from Hibiki, or the future riders from Geo, but there are obviously some exceptions. So without further ado, this is my tier list on the supporting Kamen Riders. First is Miyuki Tezuka, Kamen Rider Raya, and he's a pretty good Ryuki rider. He's pretty much the only character besides Shinji who's completely good, and that's interesting when every single other rider's pretty much a bad guy. He's also a cool fortune teller, and like all the other riders, he has an ironic end where he believes his fortunes are always right, but then he ends up sacrificing himself to save Shinji when his fate was seemingly sealed. So he's a pretty good character as an inverse of most of the other Ryuki riders, so he's pretty cool. He's B tier. Next is Zanki, Kamen Rider Zanki, and he's a great supporting rider. He's just a cool mentor to Todoroki, has a lot of cool moments. I just wish he was around more, because he really isn't around that much, especially after his staff switch when it focuses a lot on Hibiki, Yubuki, and Todoroki. So he's really cool. I liked his actor from Kiva, so it's cool to see him again, and he's just really cool, one of the best supporting riders. He's S tier. Next is Daisuke Kazama, Kamen Rider Drake. He's a character I never really liked because he always just felt like a complete filler character. He never had anything to do with the main plot of Kabuto, and his side plot just felt like it took away time from the main plot and the main characters. He never really interacts that much with the actual main cast and just kind of does his own thing. It's a pretty wholesome side story, but it just felt superfluous. And his story was kind of interesting, but him as a character was never that interesting. And I just always thought it was just not a necessary addition to Kabuto that just kind of took away time from the more interesting characters. So I never really liked him. He's D tier. Next is Jiro, the first Kamen Rider Proto-Ixa, and he's a really cool character, but definitely has some missed potential. Like I said before, he's played by Zanki's actor, who's really cool. And so this character is really cool, especially because he's a werewolf. And he's definitely morally gray and kind of just wants to get with Yuri no matter what. In the first half of the season, when he's rivals with Otoya, he's pretty good as his kind of unreluctant helper of the Blue Sky Association, kind of just to get closer to Yuri, but secretly is a werewolf fan, is killing a bunch of people. But really after he loses Proto-Ixa to Otoya, he pretty much disappears along with the rest of the armed monsters, kind of just becomes one of them again who don't really do anything throughout the entire season and shows up very sporadically. So kind of sucks that he's only around for the first half of the season, but he's cool enough in that to be a pretty good character. So he's A tier. Next is Otoya Kurenai, the second Kamen Rider Proto-Ixa, and he's one of the best supporting riders, and in my opinion the best character in all of Kiva. He's just such a fun and charismatic character as a womanizer who really just wants to get with Yuri, as well as a master violinist. And just interesting how different he is from Wataru, who's very shy, whereas he's very flamboyant and outgoing. And his rivalry with Jiro in the first half of the season is definitely the best part of the season. It's very funny. And once he becomes Proto-Ixa, he's pretty good. But the stuff with Yuri I never really cared about. I don't really care about love stuff that much. Especially when as soon as he gets with Yuri, he starts to cheat on her with the Fangar Queen. So I never really liked that part. But as a character as a whole, he's really fun. He eventually learns to stop just pining over Yuri and save everyone by sacrificing himself and becoming Dark Kiva. So he's a really cool character, especially because of how different he is from Wataru. Definitely the best from Kiva. So he's S tier. Next is Hideyasu Jonochi, Kamen Rider Gridon. He's a very good character. He's initially just one of the random dance group leaders in the first arc of Gaim, who are very unmemorable. But once the first arc ends and he becomes Bravo's apprentice, he becomes really funny. One of the best comic relief characters in all of Rider. Has a bunch of really wholesome moments with Bravo. Has a lot of really funny moments. One of the only filler episodes is just dedicated to Bravo and Jonochi, and it's really funny. So as a character as a whole, I wouldn't say he's great, but as a comic relief character, he's pretty much as good as you can get, and I like him a lot, so he's A tier. Next is Ryoji Hase, Kamen Rider Kurokage. He's kind of missed potential. Again, in the first arc, he's just one of the dance group leaders that isn't focused on at all. And I feel like if the other dance groups besides Gaim and Baron were focused on, he might be better. And even after the first arc ends, he dies incredibly fast, pretty much just to show that the forbidden fruit can tempt everyone and turns them into invests. So it's a very important part of the season. It's a very impactful moment. But as a character, he's very unmemorable. But I feel like he could have been a lot better if he was focused on more. So he's not completely terrible, but not very memorable besides the moment where he turns into an invest. So we C tier. Next is Oren Pierre Alfonso, Kamen Rider Bravo, and he's a great supporting writer. In the first arc, he's pretty much one of the main antagonists, and he's very interesting as a patissier who used to be a soldier of fortune, and that's just a really funny dichotomy. And he just has a really flamboyant personality, but can still be taken seriously in the first arc as an actual threat. But after the first arc, he mostly just becomes comic relief along with Jonochi, but it's still one of the best parts of the season, kind of alleviates the dark moments because Gaim gets really dark. He's just a great character, especially after he takes Jonochi under his wing. He's very funny. He's one of the best supporting writers. He's S tier. Next is Zack, Kamen Rider Knuckle, and he's a character that just doesn't get enough focus. He's kind of just one of the henchmen to Baron when he's still the leader of Team Baron. But once he leaves and Zack becomes the leader, he pretty much gets forgotten about until the last 3 episodes where he actually does something. And he's pretty cool in his V-Cinema movie, so I kind of wish he got more focus in his own season. Because as it is now, he's kind of just a generic good guy, not that memorable. But his V-Cinema showed that he can actually be interesting if he's actually focused on. So he had potential to be good, but he just didn't get enough focus. So he's C tier. Next is Poppy, Kamen Rider Poppy. She's decent, but again, I feel like she could have been done better. As a writer girl, she's really good and has a lot of actual focus that a lot of those characters don't get. But as a writer, I feel like she was misused. Just in general, I think her personality as Poppy is kind of annoying. And when she's mostly Poppy and not her other alter ego, who's a lot more chill, it gets kind of unbearable sometimes. But overall, she brings a nice levity to the season. And the moment in the third arc when she leaves to join the Bugster could have been really interesting, except for the fact that she was just brainwashed to do it instead of going back to join her own people, which I feel like should have just been how it was. And then when she returns as Kamen Rider Poppy to the actual team, she's more of a temporary part-time writer, which I like because it doesn't saturate the whole other writers. So as a character, she could have had more done with her, but she's still decent enough, and I overall like her, so she's C tier. Next is Ryo Ogami, Kamen Rider Buster. Of the Saber Riders, he's definitely the best in my opinion. He's just an older guy with a son, and that's very wholesome. Also has a very cool suit and has the coolest sacred sword out of all of them. But as is the problem with pretty much every single writer in Saber, there's way too many of them, so none of them get any actual focus. And that's especially seen with Buster, who is pretty much not focused on at all. It's pretty much no actual storyline to work with, which sucks because I think his personality is really cool. His relationship with his son is really cool, yet he's never focused on it at all. But his personality is good enough to make him a good character, so he's A tier. Next is Ren Nakamichi, Kamen Rider Kenzan, and he's honestly one of my least favorite writers of all time, on par with Hotaro for maybe my least favorite. He's just so unlikable, such an annoying personality, and on top of that, he's one of the only characters besides Toma that actually gets any storyline devoted to him, which sucks because he's the worst character of the entire season. Storyline with his ass is pretty stupid, but it's at least something that none of the other writers get. But he's so annoying when he's turning on Toma, and when he goes on his own and becomes an annoying loner character. He's just so annoying and unlikable and never does anything to redeem himself. He's always the same exact character throughout the entire season, and I never liked him, especially because out of all the characters in Saber, he's one of the only that actually got any focus. So he sucks. He's D tier. Next is Tetsuo Daishinji, Kamen Rider Slash, and like the other writers, he just gets no focus at all. And he's definitely one of the characters who I feel like didn't actually need to be a writer. He's just the blacksmith of the swords, which is cool. It does have a funny tick where he does rockstar screams sometimes, but he just gets no focus at all. He never really showed that he actually needed to be a writer, but he is fun enough and has enough of a personality for me to not dislike him, so he's C tier. Next is Yuri, Kamen Rider Psycho. This is the biggest missed opportunity of all the Saber writers, because I really like his personality, I really like his backstory as coming from the past and becoming the Sword of Light, and then coming into the future and not really knowing how to integrate into society, but still being incredibly stoic, so it leads to funny moments. But again, outside of the couple episodes that introduce him, he gets literally no focus. He's sidelined almost immediately, which sucks because he's one of my more favorite writers from Saber. I really like his personality. He has an interesting connection to the lore of Saber, so it just sucks that he's pretty much sidelined almost immediately, and I really like him. He's probably on par with Buster for me as my favorite writer from Saber, so he's A tier. Next is Reika Shindai, Kamen Rider Sabella, and she's decent, but not done the best. She's necessarily very interesting in the second arc when she's a mysterious person from the Sword of Logos who makes everyone turn on Toma, but pretty much after that, when it's revealed that she's just a lackey working for Kamen Rider Solomon, she's a lot less interesting. She has a very weird relationship with her brother, which is always incredibly strange to me, and she never was really evil. She was just working for Sword of Logos, who she thought was good, but it's actually evil, so I don't really mind her joining up with the team after that, but she's definitely not at all interesting after the second arc, so could have been better but could have been worse, so she's C tier. Next is Ryoga Shindai, Kamen Rider Durandal, and again, he's complete missed potential because he's such a cool character, but he's mostly just a henchman for Kamen Rider Solomon. His power of teleporting that Durandal gives him is really cool, but out of all the characters, he pretty much has no backstory that's explained at all, and his turn to good is kind of weird, but I mean, like Sabella, it makes sense because he's not really evil, he's just working for Master Logos, who is actually evil. But I could see that he can be way more interesting because I really like how cool he is, but literally nothing is done with him, so he's B tier. Next is Hiromi Kadota, Kamen Rider Demons, and he's one of the best writers from Revice, and one of the only that actually feels like he justifies him being a writer. He just has an interesting personality, and if you've seen my secondary writers video, you know how much I hated Daiji's heel turn because he loses Kagero, but Hiromi shows it's much better when he loses his demon. Instead of becoming a weird, wanting to kill everyone for justice and joining the main enemy, he just gets the idea to lay down his life every single time he transforms into demons, which is a lot better and makes him a lot more likable of a character. He's pretty cool, but he quote-unquote dies way too early at like episode 20 or something, and then is just randomly revealed to be alive in a filler episode, a clip show no less, and then like 15 episodes after that he comes back and it's supposed to be this big reveal, but we already knew he came back in the clip show, and after that doesn't really do anything. So it kind of sucks that he lost demons pretty early into season and then never gets to take it up ever again, but I think his story was kind of done by that point. And overall, I thought he was a well-done character, so he's A tier. Next is Hikaru Ushijima, Kamen Rider Over Demons, and he's a completely unmemorable character. I don't remember him at all. He's just one of the people from Weekend, and he's one of the characters that shows that Revice absolutely did not need 9 writers. I don't remember anything from him. I just kind of remember him that, oh, he's the guy that's over demons, and he's part of Weekend, and that's it. Nothing to say about him. He's not a memorable character at all. He's D tier. Next is Hana Natsuki / Aguilera, Kamen Rider Aguilera. She's another character with a bunch of missed potential. She was born into the Deadmans, so her leaving the Deadmans and trying to integrate into society could have been interesting, but nothing is done with it. Pretty much nothing is done with the relationship between her and Sakura after she's redeemed, even though it's hinted at a lot, and kind of sucks that nothing was done with it. And her redemption makes sense, but I feel like she becomes a writer out of nowhere. It wasn't earned really at all. And again, Revice did 99 writers, and she could have been part of Weekend, but I don't think she deserved to be a writer. So just her turn for being a fairly decent general in the Deadmans to just becoming an unmemorable side character in Weekend, and nothing really done with her having to grapple with the fact that she has to actually integrate into society when she was a part of the Deadmans her entire life. Nothing is done with that. That just sucks. And she ends up being a very generic character that I don't really like. So she's D tier. Next is Genta Igarashi, Kamen Rider Deathstream. I know he transforms as Deathstream on like 2 occasions, but he's such a good character that I can overlook that. He's definitely the best character in Revice for me. He initially comes off as a happy-go-lucky dad, but it's revealed that he has a pretty dark backstory where he fought in the past as Kamen Rider Veil, and that's really cool. And him becoming Deathstream and fighting Veil in the end is the best part in all of Revice. Such a good fight. But the problem I have with him is that it kind of just is used to set up the Kamen Rider Veil spinoff. His life as Veil is not explored at all in the show itself, kind of just in an exposition dump, but not really any detail. And so when he does become Deathstream and has his final fight with Veil, it feels kind of hollow in the show unless you have seen the Kamen Rider Veil spinoff, which I did, and it's really good. But if you didn't, it would feel kind of hollow, and you wouldn't really understand his final resolution with Veil. It would seem kind of counterintuitive and confusing. So you kind of have to see the Kamen Rider Veil spinoff to get the full picture and for it to make full sense and be fully satisfying. But it's definitely worth it, and he's one of the coolest characters in all of Rider. I just wish that more of that story was shown in the show itself instead of being only in the spinoff. But he's still one of the best characters in all of Rider in my opinion. He's S tier. Next is George Karazaki, Kamen Rider Kuuga. Out of every single character in all of Rider, he's definitely the one with the most missed potential. He could have been one of the best characters in all of Rider, but he was just misused throughout the season. He came off really interesting early on as he worked with the heroes, but he was dedicated to create the strongest rider system, and he did a lot of sketchy things to attain that, like intentionally unleashing Kagero from Daiji and giving Hiromi the demon's driver even though he knew it was killing him in the end. But once Hiromi seemingly dies, he just becomes a generic good guy. He's kind of teased as being the next demons, but nothing is really done with that. And then throughout the latter half of the season, he does pretty much nothing except revise his final form. And then once his father dies, he just randomly snaps and becomes evil and wants to destroy all the riders as Kamen Rider Kuuga, and it seems like it comes out of nowhere. It at least paid off what was set up earlier in the season as him trying to create a rider system, but it just feels so random, feels so out of place where he would become a villain. It really just seems like they needed to pad out the season to 50 episodes because they defeated GIF only a couple episodes earlier than that, and there's still like 5 episodes left in the season, so they needed a villain and they just made him the villain. Seems like something that they should have saved for a V cinema instead of cramming into the end of the season. So he's just a really weird character. Could have been great. Still is pretty interesting, has a really funny personality, has a lot of funny sayings, and so he's likable, but from a story sense, he's definitely misused badly and could have been a great character, but is not that good in the story department, but has a fun enough personality to be still an entertaining character, so he's B tier. Next is Win Haruya, Kamen Rider Punk Jack, and he could have been good, but isn't done that well in the season itself. In the first arc, he's kind of just a nameless substitute for some of the Yamato games, but in the second arc, he actually becomes a character as this punk rocker who turns out to be a plant by the DGP, which is interesting, but outside of that, really nothing is done with him. After the second arc, he's gone for a while until he just comes back unceremoniously in one of the later arcs and kind of just hangs out at the DGP salon and doesn't really do anything of note. I like his personality, and the idea that he's a DGP plant is pretty interesting, but I don't think anything is really done with him, and could have been good, but he just wasn't used that well at all. So he's C tier. Next is Saya Ganaha, Kamen Rider Lopo. She's good enough, but it's pretty unmemorable. She's kind of just in the Disaster arc just to be a red herring as the Disaster, and nothing else is really done with her. She seems like a character that should have returned later like Punk Jack, but she never does. And her backstory in that she's joining the GGP to help her siblings is really good. But again, after the Disaster arc, she doesn't appear ever again, and she's just kind of forgettable, even if she is likable in the Disaster arc itself. So she's C tier. Next is Sara Sakurai, Kamen Rider Hakubi. She's a writer for a very short time, really only like 5 or 6 episodes in the Desire Royale arc, but she's around in the entire season as kind of the motivation for Keiwa. She has a really good relationship with him, and then when she becomes a writer, it's really cool. I like her relationship with Nago. I just kind of wish she was a writer for longer. She's a writer for a very short time before Buffa takes her writer powers, and then in the final arc, she's killed by Naj Sparrow, seemingly, once he becomes the Yamato Gardener, and that turns Keiwa heel. But then that loss is just undone by the end, so it didn't really mean anything. She's really likable. She has a great relationship with Keiwa, and she serves her purpose as a writer, but again, her fake dying is kind of lame. But overall, she's a good character. She's B tier. Next is Ho Kaguya Quartz, Kamen Rider Legend. He definitely didn't need to be in Gotchard, but because Gotchard is so bad, even an unnecessary character is pretty good. He's one of the better characters in Gotchard, even though he's only in like 2 episodes in the movie. This is a really interesting personality, and if he was a main writer, it would have been cool, as this type of chill, mysterious, lordly kind of character is not really done in Rider in a very long time, pretty much in Soji Tendo, and he has an interesting backstory, but again, he's kind of just used as like anniversary bait in a season that didn't really need it, but he's a decent enough character. Not my favorite, but easily one of the best characters in Gotchard, even though he's around for a very short amount of time, so he's B tier. Finally, Fuga Kudo, Kamen Rider Wind. He's a really cool character, my favorite character in Gotchard, but he's just not around at all. Kind of becomes a Kamen Rider out of absolutely nowhere. I like him, but there's really nothing else to say about him. I still believe that he's Hotaro's dad, even though that's probably not true. And Kamen Rider Wind is cool, but again, he is barely around anyway and transforms into Wind even less, so it's kind of just a cool recurring character in Gotchard. When he shows up, it's cool, but not a really important character in the plot. Important to Rine, but not to the plot, and I just wish he was around more because he's a really cool character. So he's B tier. So here's my tier ranking of the supporting Kamen Riders. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? And with this video, I've ranked pretty much every single Kamen Rider there is, at least the important ones. And like my Sentai videos, it was a lot of fun to make, even though they get way less views than my Super Sentai rankings. My next video is going to be on Kamen Rider movies. I still got like 7 to watch, so that'll probably come out next month. And then about the news of Sentai potentially being canceled or rebranded or whatever, once there's actual concrete information, I'll make a video on it, because right now it's kind of just off of rumors. Even though it's more likely than not it's gonna happen, I just want to make sure that it's confirmed completely before I make any videos on it. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Feedback is always appreciated. Have a great day.